In this small town of Sedalia, heroin was the elephant in the room that no one wanted to talk about. It's not just an inner city drug, it's here. My daughter died here in this house of a heroin overdose. She was our youngest, so I spoiled her, I know, daddy's girl. Very typical middle-class upbringing and doing the things that kids do.
Sometimes I would just sit at the back door and listen to the kids and listen to Jess playing out in the backyard, and it was just all those happy sounds of, kids playing.
First day of 6th grade, we both went to the bus stop, and it was literally best friends from that point on. We had all the same classes, we were on the same team in middle school, so it just seemed to fit.
Growing up through high school, academically she was extremely sharp. She loved to read and journal, and she wrote very well. She won awards with her writing. There weren't enough hours in the day for Jessica because she had so many things she wanted to do. She had so many things going on. We often talked about her becoming an actor.
We did plays together, we did one acts together. We actually directed our own play in high school together. And then we practiced a lot of speech and debate on this stage because we ended up going to nationals our junior year of high school.
I knew she had started smoking marijuana about her junior year in high school. Her brother and sister ratted her out, which I'm glad.
I didn't smoke weed in high school. I didn't really drink in high school, but of course my group of friends were involved in some partying, some smoking, all that. It's common in high school, but for some people it literally is a gateway drug.
If I'm smoking marijuana and all of a sudden it's not quite doing what it used to do for me, then it makes it a little bit easier for me to try something else. And so maybe it's somebody had a pain pill. And so, okay, I can take the pain pill. Or somebody's got Xanax, and I take the Xanax. But when I stop feeling the high that I used to get, then I'm gonna want something else to help me feel better.
She did admit to me that her boyfriend had introduced heroin to her. He had had an injury and had become addicted to heroin.
All of us are still a little bit confused as well, because we don't know where that jump happened. But she did it for the first time at a party in college. That's all I know. And once she moved in with me, things had already been pretty bad. And I didn't really know how bad they were until I got a call from my other roommate. She was crying and upset, but I couldn't really understand what was going on. So I rushed home, and she came in the room and told me that Jessica was screaming at her boyfriend at the time to shoot her up in the leg. And he was refusing. He said, all of your veins are, totally dead in your arm. We should stop doing this. And he was trying to convince her to slow things down. And she didn't want to stop. I chose to call Wayne because I felt like he would, I don't know.
It scared me to death. It made me very sad, and her friends were worried about her, and her grades are starting to slip, and her personality was even starting to change. I thought that she was smart enough to overcome this. I thought she was dedicated enough to get away from this, that this was a phase, and probably some parents think that. In Jessica's case, this phase became a true addiction.
If I use something, and if I'm predisposed, I could actually become addicted the first time I use because my body is kind of primed and it grabs hold of it. And again, depending on what I use. Or if I use long enough, because I'm actually changing my body chemistry, my brain chemistry.
And so for the next 2.5 years, we fought the fight of drug addiction, of heroin addiction.
She was what is called a chronic relapser, meaning she would be clean for a while and then she would relapse. For Jess and I think for a lot of people, the first time, especially if you use a needle, that first high is something that addicts chase.
The first time I used something, You heard it a lot with meth use too. I am never going to feel that same experience again. So if it was 100%, it's going to be 95 or 92, or it's never going to give me what I felt that first time. Which is why it's also why people build up a tolerance and then take more and more trying to get to that initial high.
She was constantly, on the verge of dying, and she knew that. But when you're that deep in a heroin addiction, I don't think you have any desire to care.
Well, I got up around 10 o'clock or so, 10:30, took a shower, and I thought, well, she's sleeping in, so I better go check on her. And when I opened the door, she was laying there, and there was no doubt she was dead. I mean, she was dead. She was laying on the bed sideways. I just ran over and picked her up. Just said, why? Why? And I just held her. Why, Jess? The single worst moment in my life.
I just don't know how anyone can ever imagine their best friend laying in a coffin, just blue and puffy. She looked fake. She just had changed so much in so little of time. We all don't know what we could have done differently. There's a lot of guilt riding on a lot of us for the last 6 months, and I don't think that's going to change for a while.
If you go down this path, for many of you, that's all you got left. And you're not going to have your soul with you when you go, because heroin takes it.
You know in your gut it's not the right thing to do. You know you're taking a chance. Don't do it.
There's a life out there that they need to live it. That experimenting with drugs is idiotic, that the best life they can live is a life that's clean. They don't need anything to enhance these things. They don't need these drugs. They don't need to escape. They can escape with a book. They can escape with their friends. They can talk. They don't need any of this stuff, because if they try it, eventually they will need it. Jessica made one choice. One bad choice. She put a needle in her arm. And from then on, the choice was no longer hers.